With Rob Lewis, Brent Hubbs, Volquest.com, rolling along with the position previews. Mike Eckler's group on special teams really good a year ago, replacing quite a bit, particularly at the specialist spot with those kickers. It feels like punter is it's Jackson Ross, and then we don't know what, but the Australian seems to have the job.
Tennessee, I mean, they better hope that's how it works out. And he, by all accounts, had a great spring. I know Coach Eckler was really complimentary of him. And I mean, he's got an interesting backstory because he has been, he's not played in college before, but he's played Australian rules football at a very high level in front of big crowds, big stakes, high pressure games. So I don't know that that's an exact equation to the SEC, but it's not like he's just rolling in here from high school to move into the job.
Well, and you got to have some maturity to move from Australia to the States and get settled in as quickly as he did. I think it was a benefit for him to be here last year to redshirt, to certainly get himself situated there. So that seems to be all in at the punter position there. They need to stay healthy there for sure. At the place kicking position, Chase McGrath is gone, and obviously he had the kick heard around the SEC, certainly around Rocky Top. Maybe it was ugly, but it worked. He did make critical kicks for Tennessee. Tennessee looking for some experience there, goes into the transfer portal and brings home a Tennessee native.
Yeah, Charles Campbell, Indiana, wasn't really prolific, but was 39 of 51 over the course of his career, has a handful of 50-plus yarders. So, he's been around, he's played at this level. I guess he'll compete ostensibly with J.T. Carver, but most likely seems like it's Campbell's job. And, after what you got from Chase McGrath last year, not surprised. Tennessee is very comfortable with bringing in an older guy out of the portal.
Yeah, and I mean, I think when you talk about just in this league, just somebody who's kicked in front of a crowd. Maybe it's not the biggest crowd, although he's kicked in the Big House, he's kicked at Ohio State. That has to have some kind of comfort level. And I thought he had a solid spring for Tennessee, but so did Carver. Just hasn't proven it. So there is a little bit of depth there. We'll see what happens at the kickoff spot. I think if you're J.T. Carver, that's where your summer work is at, because it feels like the kickoff job is open at this point for somebody to take, and that to be their special.
And something that underrated that Paxton Brooks was really good at. I mean, Tennessee, the coverage units under Mike Eckler have really been largely good, but with Brooks, even if he wasn't banging in the end zone directionally, I think executed what they wanted to do in the kickoff game really well.
And that's a question they have to answer this fall camp, is who is going to be that kickoff guy. Do you put that burden on a Ross, worried about maybe tweaking something? That's a little bit of a concern that way that you look at. Is there a walk-on we haven't seen? Is that J.T. Carver? That's the biggest kicking spot that feels like it's available and open right now. In the return game, you got your punt return.
Yep.
On
lockdown.
And D. Williams. The question, though, is who's going to be the kickoff return guy for Tennessee?
Yeah, I don't know that it's necessarily him. Squirrel White, I think, is the name that is going to be on everybody's mind, just how dynamic he is. I really think Tennessee, when I just look at the roster athletically, I mean, it seems like they have some options, man. I don't know if you want a freshman to do that, but, they've got some good-looking dudes there. But Williams, punt returner, it looks completely natural. Kickoff return, it doesn't look quite the same.
Yeah, I mean, that's a straight line deal versus a guy making a lot of people miss and kind of laterally in the punt return game. I wonder if a guy like Dylan Sampson doesn't get an opportunity back there, or Cam Selden or something. Like people like to put running backs back there. Is that something Tennessee will consider? I think that position is much more open for grabs, and we saw last year Tennessee wasn't very comfortable with anybody returning kicks, so it was a whole bunch of fair catches. Is that the route that they go this year in the kickoff return game?
I mean, Heupel showed that he'll err on the side of being conservative there. Just you can't really blame him when you've got this kind of offense. That's probably the last thing you ever want to do is botch a kickoff return. You
want the ball down, 1st and 10 going to your quarterback for sure. Coverage units have been good. Tennessee plays a lot of starters, but they also play a lot of young people to develop there. So it feels like Tennessee's got some roster depth to help them both in punt return coverage and kickoff return coverage as well. It's been a good special teams unit for 2 years under Josh Heupel and Mike Eckler. One would think for the same. Couple questions to answer that we'll see what that looks like when Tennessee rolls into Nashville to take on Virginia. He is Rob Lewis, Brent Hubbs, Volquest.com.